Welcome back to Broadcasting Seeds, the podcast where we dig into the mysteries of the world, cryptids, conspiracies, government cover-ups, biblical truths, and the high strangeness that makes us all question reality. I'm your host, Bennett Tanton, and today we're stepping into the shadowy forest of speculation and legend to tackle a big question, literally. What's the deal with Bigfoot? And more importantly, how does Bigfoot stack up against other cryptids? You know, it's one thing to wonder if there's a giant, hairy hominid stomping through the Pacific Northwest, but it's another thing entirely to compare it to the Yeti, orang pendek, and even the Dogman. Are these creatures related, sharing a common evolutionary lineage, or are they completely separate phenomena? And what does it mean for us as individuals and society if these beings are real? Today, we're going to break this down into 5 sections. We'll look at Bigfoot's global cousins, like the Yeti and orang pendek. We'll dive deep into Dogman lore and what makes it such an outlier. Then, we'll explore the science, or lack thereof, behind these creatures. Is there a connection? An ancient evolutionary link, or are we dealing with something far more paranormal? Now buckle up. This isn't just about campfire stories or blurry YouTube videos. It's about connecting the dots, thinking critically, and maybe, just maybe, opening our eyes to the possibilities hiding right in front of us. Let's get started. Bigfoot's extended family, or at least its potential cousins from around the world. Because let's face it, Bigfoot isn't the only cryptid in the family tree of large, hairy, bipedal creatures that like to stay out of focus. Let's start with the Yeti, often referred to as the abominable snowman. Unlike Bigfoot, who seems perfectly content to hang out in the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest, the Yeti prefers the icy, remote Himalayan mountain ranges. Now, if you've ever watched a nature documentary, you'll know that surviving in such an environment requires some serious adaptations. That's why the Yeti is often described as having thick fur, a stockier build, and feet designed to navigate snowy terrain. Think Bigfoot, but wearing a parka and snowshoes. Interestingly, the Yeti's lore goes back centuries. In Himalayan folklore, the Yeti isn't just some random beast. It's a spiritual creature, sometimes viewed as a guardian of the mountains. This is where things get interesting. While Bigfoot sightings tend to focus on the physical, the Yeti has always had this otherworldly vibe. Is it possible these two cryptids are connected, but adapted differently based on their habitats? Or is the Yeti more of a supernatural entity than a biological one? Next, we have the orang pendek of Sumatra. Now, this one is fascinating because it's described as much smaller than Bigfoot or the Yeti, standing only about 3 to 5 feet tall. But what it lacks in size, it makes up for in credibility. Reports of the orang pendek aren't just from local folklore. They've also come from Western explorers, researchers, and even seasoned anthropologists. Unlike Bigfoot, the orang pendek doesn't leave massive footprints or inspire blockbuster movies, but its behavior, shy, elusive, and quick to vanish into the jungle, sounds awfully familiar. And then there's the anatomical angle. Descriptions of the orang pendek align closely with known primates, leading some to suggest it could be a surviving member of an ancient hominid species like Homo floresiensis. Could Bigfoot and the orang pendek be distant relatives shaped by their respective environments? Now let's pivot to Australia and the Yowie, often referred to as Australia's Bigfoot. The Yowie much like its American cousin, is described as a massive, bipedal, hairy creature. But here's where it gets weird. Yowie sightings often come with a supernatural twist. Witnesses have reported feelings of dread, strange sounds, and even inexplicable glitches in the environment around Yowie encounters. Sound familiar? Bigfoot has been tied to similar phenomena, like strange lights or sudden silence in the forest. Could this hint at something more than biology, a shared paranormal or interdimensional trait? What ties these global cryptids together is both their similarity and their regional uniqueness. They all occupy the fringes of human perception, inhabiting remote areas where they can avoid detection. But here's the question. Are these creatures evidence of a global hominid lineage adapting to their environments over time, or are they shaped by the cultures and landscapes that report them? We'll dive deeper into that later, but for now, let's look at an entirely different kind of cryptid, one that might not even belong in the same conversation. Next up, Dogman. All right, let's talk about Dogman, a cryptid that seems like it stumbled out of a horror movie and straight into your nightmares. Unlike Bigfoot and its global cousins, Dogman doesn't neatly fit into the large, hairy hominid category. Instead, it's more like the black sheep or maybe the black wolf of the cryptid family. Descriptions of Dogman vary, but the general consensus is that it's a bipedal creature with canine features, a wolf-like head, pointed ears, glowing eyes, and a muscular body that often walks upright but is just as comfortable dropping down on all fours. Think werewolf, but without the full moon drama. Dogman lore has deep roots, with sightings reported as far back as Native American legends. The Michigan Dogman, for example, has been terrifying people since at least the 1800s. These encounters often come with eerie details, unnerving howls, inexplicable dread, and, in some cases, a sense of being watched by something malevolent. Unlike Bigfoot, who's often described as shy and reclusive, Dogman is portrayed as aggressive, territorial, and outright menacing. Witnesses rarely report peaceful interactions with Dogman. Instead, they describe encounters that feel more like warnings or outright threats. One story from Wisconsin's Bray Road tells of a driver being chased by a Dogman who not only kept pace with the car, but slammed into it. That's not exactly Bigfoot's vibe, is it? So what makes Dogman such an outlier? For starters, its behavior and appearance suggests something far removed from biological plausibility. While Bigfoot has been linked to theories about ancient hominids or undiscovered primates, Dogman's upright posture, wolf-like anatomy, and glowing eyes lean heavily into the paranormal. And then there's the really weird stuff. Dogman sightings often coincide with other phenomena, like UFOs, strange lights, and even poltergeist activity. This has led some researchers to speculate that Dogman isn't a physical creature at all, but rather a supernatural or interdimensional entity. In fact, some theorists tie Dogman to skinwalker legends, shape-shifting beings from Native American folklore that blur the lines between the physical and the spiritual. Another key difference is the emotional impact of encounters. While Bigfoot sightings often leave witnesses in awe or confusion, Dogman encounters leave people terrified. There's an almost primal fear associated with Dogman, as if it taps into something buried deep in the human psyche. Could it be that Dogman represents more than just a cryptid? Maybe it's a manifestation of fear itself, taking physical form. But let's not forget, some researchers argue that Dogman is a flesh and blood creature, possibly a highly adapted predator that has remained hidden due to its intelligence and nocturnal nature. There's even speculation that Dogman could be an undiscovered species of upright canid, a terrifying prospect, sure, but one rooted in the natural world. Dogman's aggression, supernatural associations, and striking differences from Bigfoot and other cryptids make it a true outlier. Whether it's an interdimensional being, a physical predator, or something even stranger, one thing is clear. Dogman doesn't play by the same rules as its hairy cousins. Next, we'll dive into the science, or the lack thereof, behind these creatures. Are cryptids like Bigfoot and Dogman connected through ancient evolutionary links, or are we looking at entirely different origins? All right, it's time to put on our science hats, or maybe our tinfoil ones, and tackle one of the big questions surrounding cryptids. Are creatures like Bigfoot, the Yeti, Orang Pendek, and even Dogman connected through evolution? Or are we looking at something far weirder, possibly even supernatural? Let's start with the evolutionary angle because, hey, it's always good to give science a fair shot. The most popular biological theory about Bigfoot and its cousins centers around the idea that these creatures could be surviving members of ancient hominid species. For example, the massive primate Gigantopithecus, which lived around 100,000 years ago, is often cited as a potential ancestor for Bigfoot. Gigantopithecus was a 10-foot tall, 1,000-pound ape that roamed parts of Asia. Its size and general description sound eerily similar to Bigfoot, and some researchers suggest it might have migrated to North America across the Bering Land Bridge during the Ice Age. This theory would also explain the Yeti, as the Himalayas are relatively close to Gigantopithecus's known range. But here's the problem. Gigantopithecus is believed to have been quadrupedal, meaning it walked on all fours, unlike the bipedal Bigfoot we hear about in eyewitness reports. Then there's Homo floresiensis, often nicknamed the Hobbit. These small hominids lived in Indonesia until about 50,000 years ago and share some physical traits with the Orang Pendek. Could it be that pockets of ancient hominids survived in isolated areas, evolving to fit their environments? It's plausible, but it doesn't explain the worldwide sightings of large bipedal cryptids like Bigfoot and the Yowie. So, if science doesn't have all the answers, what about the supernatural or interdimensional theories? This is where things get interesting. Many cryptid encounters come with a side of high strangeness, like glowing eyes, strange lights, or even sudden disappearances. Some researchers believe this points to cryptids existing not as physical creatures, but as beings that slip in and out of our reality. Consider this. Witnesses often describe Bigfoot vanishing without a trace, even in areas where footprints are found. How does something that weighs several hundred pounds just disappear? One theory is that cryptids like Bigfoot and Dogman might be interdimensional entities capable of moving between planes of existence. This would explain not only their elusiveness, but also the weird phenomena like UFOs and electromagnetic disturbances, often reported during sightings. Another possibility is that these creatures are spiritual manifestations. In Native American lore, Bigfoot is sometimes considered a protector of the forest, a spirit being rather than a flesh and blood creature. Similarly, the Yeti is often tied to Himalayan spiritual practices, with some locals believing it guards sacred areas. Could it be that these creatures are tied to the land itself, appearing only when certain conditions are met? And then there's the hybrid theory, The idea that cryptids could be a mix of both biological and supernatural elements. Imagine a creature that exists physically but is also capable of tapping into energies or dimensions we don't fully understand. It's like trying to explain quantum mechanics with a flip phone. Our brains just aren't wired to get it yet. Of course, the hybrid theory raises even more questions. If cryptids are part biological, could they reproduce? And if they're part supernatural, what's their purpose? Are they here to observe us, to guide us, or just to mess with us? Ultimately, the lack of hard evidence keeps both the evolutionary and supernatural theories in the realm of speculation. But the fact that these creatures are reported across so many cultures and environments suggests there's something going on, something that transcends simple folklore. Next, we'll shift gears and examine the role that culture and geography play in shaping our understanding of cryptids. Are these creatures universal phenomena, or are they products of the human imagination molded by local beliefs and environments? Now, let's talk about the role culture and geography play in shaping cryptid lore. Because whether you're talking about Bigfoot, the Yeti, or the orang pendek, one thing becomes clear. These creatures are deeply tied to the landscapes and societies that describe them. But does that mean they're purely products of human imagination, or are they universal phenomena viewed through different cultural lenses? Take Bigfoot, for example. In North America, the Sasquatch legend is rooted in Native American traditions that long predate the modern fascination with the creature. Tribes across the continent have stories of wildmen or hairy giants that inhabit the forests, often as protectors of nature or omens of spiritual significance. Fast forward to today, and you'll find Bigfoot depicted as a flesh and blood creature hunted by enthusiasts with trail cameras and plaster casts for footprints. Same creature, different narrative. Now compare this to the Yeti in the Himalayas. In Tibetan and Nepalese culture, the Yeti isn't just a cryptid, it's a spiritual entity, often associated with sacred mountains and religious practices. Some Buddhist monasteries even claim to have relics like Yeti scalps or bones, which are treated with reverence rather than as proof for science. The Yeti's connection to spirituality and the harsh, isolated environment of the Himalayas makes it a creature of mystique rather than just a cryptozoological curiosity. Then there's the orang pendek of Sumatra. This cryptid, unlike Bigfoot or the Yeti, doesn't have the same supernatural baggage. Instead, it's described in practical terms, like an elusive primate that locals often claim to have seen while foraging in the jungle. The orang pendek is tied to the dense tropical environment of Sumatra, and its small size reflects that ecosystem. Here, the focus is less on mystery and more on biology, almost as if it's just another jungle inhabitant we haven't officially discovered yet. But what about the outliers, like Dogman? Its lore, particularly in the United States, often overlaps with cultural fears and archetypes. The idea of a half-wolf, half-man stalking rural roads taps into primal fears of predators and the unknown. It's no coincidence that Dogman stories often come from regions with rich werewolf folklore, like Wisconsin or Michigan. Could it be that Dogman represents a modern interpretation of ancient myths, shaped by our current fears and cultural context? One theory that ties these threads together is the concept of archetypes, universal symbols or patterns that appear across human cultures. Carl Jung, the famous psychologist, argued that certain ideas and images are hardwired into the human psyche, emerging in different ways depending on the culture. Could cryptids like Bigfoot and the Yeti be modern expressions of an archetype for the wild man, representing our connection and fear of nature? But here's the twist. While culture clearly shapes how cryptids are perceived and described, it doesn't necessarily mean they aren't real. After all, the fact that so many cultures report similar creatures suggests there's a universal truth lurking beneath the folklore. Whether it's a biological species, a supernatural entity, or a manifestation of the collective unconscious, cryptids seem to occupy a space where reality and imagination collide. Geography also plays a huge role. Remote, uncharted regions like the Himalayas, dense rainforests, and the vast wilderness of North America provide the perfect backdrop for cryptid legends. These environments are hard to explore, let alone monitor, leaving plenty of room for creatures to remain undiscovered or at least undetected. But there's another layer here. As modern technology closes the gaps in our knowledge, think satellite imaging and drones, cryptids are increasingly tied to the unknown within ourselves. Maybe they're not just reflections of the land, but of our own need to believe in mysteries we can't fully explain. This brings us to the ultimate question. Are cryptids a universal phenomenon that transcends culture and geography, or are they unique to the societies that create them? The answer might be both, and that duality is what makes them so compelling. Next, we'll wrap up this exploration with a big picture view. Is there a way to tie all these cryptids together under a single theory, or are they destined to remain fragmented mysteries? All right, let's bring it all together. We've compared Bigfoot to its global counterparts, dissected Dogman's outlier status, explored evolutionary and supernatural theories, and looked at how culture and geography shape cryptid lore. Now let's ask the big question, is there a way to connect all these dots? Can we craft a unified cryptid theory that explains Bigfoot, Yeti, orang pendek, Dogman, and the rest of the shadowy crew? First, let's revisit the evolutionary angle. If cryptids like Bigfoot and the Yeti are remnants of an ancient hominid lineage, it's possible that different populations adapted to their environments over millennia, resulting in distinct but related species. This idea aligns with the regional adaptation theory we see in known animals. Think of how wolves became domesticated dogs, or how isolated island species evolve unique traits. The Yeti, for instance, might have evolved for cold mountainous climates, while Bigfoot adapted to dense forests. The orang pendek, smaller and more agile, could represent a lineage suited for tropical jungles. Even Dogman, despite its outlier status, might have biological roots. Perhaps as an upright predator with canine features. It's not a perfect fit, but it's worth considering. However, this biological explanation falters when we bring in the high strangeness. Reports of cryptids disappearing without a trace, interacting with UFOs, or exhibiting supernatural abilities don't fit neatly into an evolutionary framework. That's where the paranormal and interdimensional theories come into play. One possibility is that cryptids exist in a parallel dimension, one that occasionally overlaps with our own. Think of it like radio frequencies. Most of the time, we're tuned to one station, but every now and then, we catch static from another. This would explain why cryptids are so elusive, why they seem to appear and vanish without a trace, and why sightings often occur in areas with reported UFO activity or electromagnetic anomalies. Another layer to this theory is the idea that cryptids are manifestations of human consciousness. If we accept the premise that thought and energy can shape reality, a concept explored in quantum physics and spiritual traditions, it's possible that cryptids are projections of collective fears, archetypes, or even suppressed memories. This could explain why cryptids like Dogman seem to elicit primal fear, while creatures like Bigfoot are often viewed with awe or curiosity. But here's a question. Why would these manifestations take the form of hairy hominids, canine hybrids, or small jungle dwellers? The answer might lie in our shared mythology. Across cultures and eras, stories of wild men, beasts, and guardians of nature appear time and time again. These archetypes resonate because they tap into universal themes: the unknown, the untamed, and the boundary between civilization and wilderness. Now, let's complicate things further with the hybrid theory. What if cryptids are both biological and supernatural? Imagine a creature that exists in our physical world but is also capable of interacting with higher dimensions or energies. This could account for the physical evidence, footprints, hair samples, sightings, while also explaining the supernatural phenomena often associated with cryptid encounters. Finally, we have to address the why question. If these creatures are real, whether biological, supernatural, or a combination of both, what's their purpose? Are they remnants of an ancient world hiding from humanity's encroachment? Guardians of sacred spaces, as some indigenous traditions suggest? Or could they be something more ominous, watchers, observers, or even experiments from an intelligence far beyond our understanding? The truth is, we may never fully know, but that's what makes cryptids so captivating. They challenge us to confront the limits of our knowledge, to question what we think we know about the natural world, and to consider possibilities that defy easy explanations. So, is there a unified cryptid theory? Maybe. Or maybe these creatures are meant to remain fragmented mysteries, each one a piece of a puzzle we're not yet equipped to solve. Either way, they remind us that the world and our place in it is far stranger and more complex than we could ever imagine. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Broadcasting Seeds. We've journeyed across the globe, from the icy peaks of the Himalayas to the dense rainforests of Sumatra, and even to the back roads of Wisconsin, to explore the wild, weird, and wonderful world of cryptids. Bigfoot might be the MVP of this game, but its cousins and outliers like Dogman remind us that the mysteries of our world run deep, tangled in the threads of culture, biology, and maybe even the supernatural. Whether you believe in these creatures, dismiss them as folklore, or sit somewhere in the skeptical middle, one thing is clear. They challenge us to think bigger, to dig deeper, and to question what we think we know about reality. And hey, maybe that's the point. If you enjoyed today's episode, do me a favor. Like, share, and review the podcast wherever you're listening. It helps more people discover Broadcasting Seeds, and it keeps the conversation going about the strange and mysterious topics we all love. Thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Bennett Tanton, reminding you to stay curious, keep exploring, and never stop asking questions. Until next time, keep planting those seeds of curiosity, and who knows, you might just grow your own answers. Take care, and I'll see you on the next episode of Broadcasting Seeds.
I got bad thoughts that make my mind scared, hold me hostage and they don't fight fair. Who gon' pray for me and wipe all my tears? Who gon' save me if you not right here? Move this darkness and make my sight clear. Take me your way cause I don't like here. Ghosts of my past, they feeling the night air. Wake me up, I'm trapped in my nightmares. Wake me up, I'm trapped in my nightmares. Drowning, I'm off the deep end. Apparitions of all my demons. All my thoughts are committing treason. All alone, who gon' hear me screaming? manifestations of my fears. Regrets that stretched out for light years. Can almost touch the light, homie, it's right there. Body free but trapped in my nightmares. Wake me up, don't let me drown. All the lights are fading.